When I moved into Ed Ory's space at the Hermann Professional Building, I was in the midst of office spaces of surgeons, neurosurgeons, orthopedists, and I didn't know anybody at all. But I was determined to make the best of it. My first consultation was an eye-opening experience and made a big difference in how I practice medicine. It must have been about a week after I moved into the space that I got a call from Burton Anderson, a general surgeon who had a large practice. Uh, I later learned that he was a graduate of Yale and Harvard. He went to medical school at one and college at the other, but I never could keep them straight. Burton said, I want to come down and talk to you. I was thrilled, excited, and plenty nervous. When he came down, my nurse let him in, showed him into my office suite, and he stopped and looked at my diplomas. I was a graduate of St. Louis University Medical School, probably not among the top 50 of medical schools in the United States. But I got through it and went ahead with my training. There was nothing I could do to change that. Burton walked in, we shook hands, and he began to talk. He said, I've got a patient in Hermann Hospital I'd like for you to look at. I had Jim Green see him, and Jim couldn't make much out of it. And the patient called me and said he didn't like him. You may not have known it, but Jim Green was chairman of the Department of Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine. I listened a little more to Burton, but kept wondering, what can I do that the chairman of the Department of Medicine hasn't been able to do? I told Burton I would go over and see his patient immediately. I took along a yellow legal tablet and pen and went up to his room. He had an end room which was quiet and wasn't very well lit for some reason. So I walked in and introduced myself. I sat down on the chair next to the bed and said, what seems to be bothering you? That's usually how physicians approach the patient. It's called present illness. And after that, I'm supposed to find out all about that present illness if I can, and then go on to particulars of parts of his body. I had no sooner said, what seems to be your trouble, when the patient began to talk. And I started writing, and he talked, and he talked, and I wrote and wrote. And after a while, I realized I could never keep up with his history. And he really didn't make a lot of sense. He sort of mixed up times and dates and places. So I listened, I put the tablet aside, put my pen in my pocket, and I listened and I listened. And he talked and he talked. And finally, he stopped talking. And I sensed I wasn't going to get any more out of him. I said to him, I'm going to look at your x-rays and I'll be back, see what I can learn about you. I went down to the x-ray department. He had an x-ray that had some non-specific changes in part of his lung. And I went back to the office while I tried to figure out how I was going to approach his problem. The phone rang. It was Burton. He said, Dan, my patient thinks you're the greatest physician who ever walked the earth. I didn't say anything, but I realized I had just let the patient talk and talk and talk. And he got everything off his mind, things that were bothering him, partly about his disease, partly about every part of his life. And I had made him feel better. What a discovery. What I understood. That was the aim. My aim was to let the patient talk. And then I would learn what was going on with him. And that would make him better. That's the way I continued to practice my medicine, my care of patients.